The morning sky over the Pacific Ocean turned bright with fire. Doctor pressed her face against the helicopter window as they flew toward the crash site. Below them, the water bubbled and steamed where something massive had fallen from space. "Control, this is Rescue 1, Captain spoke into his radio. "We can see the object, it's huge, maybe 2 miles long." Checked her equipment one more time. As Earth's best alien life expert, she had trained for this moment her whole career, but nothing could prepare her for what they found when they reached the crash site. The ship sat half-sunken in the ocean. Its surface looked like crystal, but broken crystal. Cracks ran across its hull like spider webs. Strange blue light leaked from the damaged areas, pulsing slowly like a weak heartbeat. "My God," whispered, "it's beautiful." "Beautiful and dangerous," replied. "Radiation readings are high but not deadly. Whatever built this used technology we don't understand." As their helicopter landed on the UN rescue ship nearby, saw other aircraft arriving. News helicopters, military jets, and boats from every nation on Earth. First contact with aliens was supposed to be controlled and careful. This was chaos. The crystal ship suddenly made a sound. It was like singing, but sad and broken. The melody carried across the water, making everyone stop and listen. Felt tears in her eyes without knowing why. "They're trying to communicate," she said. "That's not just noise, it's language." Looked doubtful. "How can you tell?" "The patterns. Listen to how it repeats certain notes. Those are words or ideas." Grabbed her recording equipment. "We need to get closer." The next hours passed in a blur. Worked with the UN translation team while divers explored the ship's hull. They found what looked like doors but made of the same crystal material. The singing continued, growing weaker each hour. Then everything changed when Played recorded human music back at the ship. She had been testing different sounds, trying to find patterns the aliens might recognize. When she played a simple piano piece by, the ship's glow suddenly became brighter. The singing changed, becoming more excited. "They recognize music," said into her radio. "They understand that we're trying to talk." Within an hour, the crystal doors began to open. Water rushed out, and the first alien had ever seen appeared. It stood 7 feet tall and looked like a person made of living crystal. Its body glowed with soft blue light, and musical notes seemed to flow around it like visible sound, but could see immediately that something was wrong. Cracks ran across the being's crystal skin, and its light flickered weakly. The alien moved slowly, carefully. It raised one hand toward and began to sing. The melody was complex and beautiful, but filled with sadness. Tried to sing back, copying the alien's notes. The being stopped, its light growing brighter with what might have been surprise. "I think it's pleased," told the watching crowd. "It didn't expect us to respond with music." More aliens appeared from the ship. Counted 50 at first, then hundreds. All of them were crystal beings like the first, and all of them showed the same cracks and weak light. They moved like people who had been hurt badly and were still in pain. The first alien approached again. This time it touched her forehead gently with one crystal finger, gasped as images flooded her mind. She saw a galaxy full of stars. She saw great ships flying between worlds. She saw the crystal people living in harmony with hundreds of other alien races. Then she saw darkness falling, ships burning, and the crystal people running in fear. When the vision ended, understood one terrible fact: these aliens were refugees. "You're running from something," she said aloud. "Something hurt you." The alien sang a single, mournful note that somehow knew meant yes. Over the next days, and her team worked around the clock to build better communication with the aliens. They called themselves which meant singers of the light in their musical language. The leader of the refugees had a name that translated roughly to resonance of falling stars. Learned that he had once been a commander in something called the Galactic Concordance, a group that ruled most of the galaxy. As learned more of their language, she discovered the truth. They had not just left their home. They had been thrown out, exiled for refusing to obey orders. What orders? Asked Resonance of Falling Stars during one of their sessions. The alien leader sang a complex melody that's computer translated slowly. The words appeared on her screen. We were told to destroy a world. We said no. The concordance called us criminals. Felt her blood go cold. Destroy a world? You mean kill everyone on it? The culling protocol, came the translation. Young species that grow too fast must be stopped. We enforced this law for 1,000 years, but we could not kill the singers of the wind. Their crime was making music instead of mathematics to travel the stars. Stared at the screen. An entire galactic government that killed developing civilizations. And these crystal people had been their police force until they developed a conscience. What happened to you after you refused? She asked. Resonance of Falling Stars dimmed noticeably. We were infected with soul fracture. Our life force breaks apart slowly. We die piece by piece. There is no cure. Looked around at the hundreds of refugees. They were dying, slowly and painfully, because they had chosen mercy over orders. Why did you come to Earth? She asked. We have nowhere else to go. Every world fears the concordance. But your planet was on the next culling list. We thought, perhaps we could warn you before we died. His hands shook as she typed her next question. Earth is scheduled to be destroyed. Within one solar cycle, your species advances too quickly. The concordance has decided you are dangerous to galactic order. Sat back in her chair, her mind racing. These aliens had given up everything to save a world they had never seen. They were dying for their principles, and they had come to warn humanity about a threat no one on Earth even knew existed. Captain appeared at shoulder. Doctor, we just received word from UN headquarters. More alien ships have been detected approaching Earth. They'll be here in 30 days. Looked at Resonance of Falling Stars. Who's coming? The alien leader sang a note of pure fear. The concordance. They have come to finish what we would not do. The emergency meeting in New York lasted 18 hours. Sat at a table surrounded by presidents, generals, and ministers from every major nation on Earth. The translation device she had built sat in the center, allowing Resonance of Falling Stars to tell humanity's leaders the full truth about their galaxy. Show them the records, said to the leader. Resonance of Falling Stars placed his crystal hands on a device from his ship. The room's lights dimmed, and holographic images appeared in the air above the table. Had seen these recordings before, but they still made her sick. The first image showed a green world with 2 suns. Cities covered the continents, and strange flying creatures filled the skies. The planet looked peaceful and beautiful. The translation device spoke in Resonance of Falling Stars' musical voice. They discovered faster-than-light travel through biological enhancement. The concordance declared them a threat to natural order. The next image showed ships surrounding the planet. Watched the crystal beings she had come to care about preparing to destroy an entire world. I led the attack fleet, the alien leader continued. For 800 years, I followed culling protocol. I believed it was necessary for galactic peace. The hologram showed the planet burning. Billions of lives ended in minutes. Saw the president of France cover his eyes. The Russian minister looked pale and sick. How many worlds? Asked the UN Secretary General. 47 species culled during my service. Trillions of lives ended. The translation carried the weight of Resonance of Falling Stars' guilt. I did not question until we found the singers of the wind. The hologram changed again. This time it showed a world where the cities themselves seemed to be made of music. Buildings that sang, vehicles that moved by harmonizing with the planet's natural frequencies, people who looked like living sound waves. They achieved space travel through musical mathematics, the translation device explained. Their entire technology was based on harmony instead of force. They were the most peaceful species I had ever encountered. But the Concordance still wanted them dead, asked Captain. Their method of space travel was different. Different means dangerous to the Concordance. All species must develop the same way, or they must be stopped. Watched the faces around the table as they saw what happened next. The fleet approached the musical world, but instead of attacking, Resonance of Falling Stars ordered his ships to withdraw. "I could not destroy something so beautiful," he sang. "No threat justified ending such peace." The hologram showed the aftermath. Half the fleet supported their leader's decision. The other half reported them as traitors. Within days, Concordance enforcement ships arrived to arrest the rebels. "The soul fracture virus was our punishment," Resonance of Falling Stars explained. "Designed to break our crystal matrix slowly, we would die in agony as an example to others." Translated the alien leader's next words carefully. "The virus cannot be stopped, but it moves slower when we are near sources of creativity and emotion. Your planet's music has given my people the first peace we have known in years." "What happened to the musical species?" asked the Chinese premier. The hologram dimmed. "They were culled by other enforcers. The singers of the wind are extinct." Silence filled the room. Could hear people breathing hard, struggling with the horror of what they had learned. The Secretary General finally spoke. "How much time do we have?" "The Concordance Advance Fleet arrives in 29 days. Administrator leads them. He is efficient and merciless." Stood up. "We can't give them the. These people saved us by warning us. They chose exile and death rather than murder innocents." "Doctor," said the American president, "you're asking us to fight a galactic empire for 50,000 refugees. I'm asking you to do what's right." The debate went on for hours. Some leaders wanted to surrender immediately and hoped the Concordance would spare Earth. Others argued that giving up refugees would make humanity no better than the aliens who had exiled them. Left the meeting when the arguments became too heated. She found Resonance of Falling Stars standing on the deck of the rescue ship, looking up at the stars. "I am sorry," he sang softly. "We brought death to your world." "No," replied, using the musical notes she had learned to speak his language. "You brought us the truth. Now we can choose how to face it. Your species will give us to the Concordance. It is the logical choice." Looked at the refugees scattered across the ship's deck. Many of them were children, their crystal bodies small and dim. They sang quiet lullabies to each other, the only comfort they had left. "Humans aren't always logical," she said. "Sometimes we're stubborn instead." 3 days later, the first Concordance ship arrived. It was smaller than the vessel but clearly built for war. Watched it take position above Earth's atmosphere while radio messages flooded every frequency on the planet. "People of Earth," the voice was cold and mechanical. "I am administrator of the Galactic Concordance Enforcement Division. You harbor criminals on your world. Surrender them within 30 standard days or face the consequences of your choice." Was in the UN building when the message played. She saw world leaders looking at each other with fear. The alien empire was real, and it had come for Earth. "We have 30 days to decide," said the Secretary General. Stood up. "Some of us have already decided." Over the next week, something unexpected happened. The story of the spread across Earth's internet and news networks. People learned about the crystal refugees who had chosen death over murder. They saw videos of children teaching human children their musical language. They heard the songs of a dying people who had sacrificed everything for their principles. Protests started in major cities. Not protests against the aliens, but protests demanding that Earth protect them. Signs appeared reading "Sanctuary for the Singers" and "Earth stands with the exiled." Received thousands of messages from musicians around the world. They had discovered that playing music near the actually helped heal their soul fracture. Concert halls opened their doors. Symphony orchestras held special performances for the refugees. "It's working," told Resonance of Falling Stars. "Your people are getting stronger." "We do not understand why human music affects us so powerfully," he replied. "But our children have not sung this clearly in years." Smiled. "Maybe it's because we're both species that believe beauty is worth preserving." 2 weeks after her ultimatum got the call she had been hoping for. The UN had reached its decision. She ran to the assembly hall where world leaders sat in emergency session. The Secretary General stood at the podium, reading from a document. "The United Nations of Earth formally rejects administrators' demand," he announced. "We hereby grant full refugee status and planetary citizenship to all currently seeking sanctuary on Earth." Felt her heart racing. Humanity had chosen to stand against a galactic empire. Furthermore, the Secretary General continued, "Earth declares itself a sanctuary world for any being fleeing persecution. We will not surrender those who seek our protection." Outside could hear cheering from the crowds that had gathered, but she also knew what this meant. Earth was now officially at war with the Galactic Concordance. Her radio crackled with Captain's voice. "Doctor, you need to see this. Our telescopes have picked up something new." Rushed to the command center. On the screens she saw dots of light moving toward Earth, hundreds of them. "The main Concordance fleet," reported. "They're 3 weeks out. Whatever we're going to do, we need to start now." Looked at the approaching lights and thought about the musical civilization that had been destroyed for being different. She thought about the children who were finally healthy enough to sing again. "Then we start," she said. "Earth doesn't back down from bullies. Time to show the galaxy what humans are made of." The transformation began immediately. Within hours of the UN's declaration, every major military base on Earth became a hive of activity. But this was unlike any war preparation in human history. Instead of building bigger weapons, humanity was learning to think in entirely new ways. Stood in a converted airplane hangar in Nevada, watching the strangest sight she had ever seen. Human engineers worked alongside refugees, trying to understand technology based on music and emotion rather than mathematics and physics. "The resonance frequency needs to match the emotional output," Resonance of Falling Stars explained to Dr. Sarah, a young pilot who had volunteered for the experimental defense program. "Your fighters think too much. Feel the harmony instead." Sarah looked confused. "How do I feel my way through a dogfight?" Smiled as she watched a child approach the pilot. The young alien began to sing, and Sarah's training fighter responded by lifting off the ground without using its engines. "Like that," said, "trust your instincts, not your instruments." The past 2 weeks had been a crash course in impossible science. They had shared everything they knew about Concordance technology, but more importantly, they had shown humanity a completely different approach to the universe. Where humans built computers, they grew living crystals that responded to thought and feeling. Where humans used rocket fuel, they created harmony between their ships and the space around them. Where humans calculated, they intuited. "The Concordance will expect you to fight like every other species," Resonance of Falling Stars had told the combined military leadership. "They have protocols for kinetic weapons, energy weapons, and defensive shields. They have no protocols for warfare based on creativity." Captain, now promoted to lead Earth's defense coordination, had initially been skeptical. "You're asking us to fight a space battle with music." "We're asking you to fight with something the Concordance cannot understand," had replied. "Human unpredictability." The proof of concept came when they tested the first hybrid defense satellite. Watched from mission control as the satellite activated its new systems. Instead of radar dishes and missile launchers, the satellite deployed crystalline arrays that began to sing. The music was complex, layered with harmonies that human ears could barely process, but the effect was immediate. Every piece of concordance technology within 100 miles simply stopped working. The resonance disrupts their quantum processing cores, a technician explained. They build everything to operate in perfect order, introduce chaos, and their systems cannot adapt. And humans are very good at chaos, added with a grin. The satellite network grew rapidly. Musicians from around the world volunteered to help compose the battle symphonies that would power the defense grid. Rock stars worked with opera singers. Jazz musicians collaborated with electronic artists. The goal was to create music so complex and unpredictable that alien computers would crash trying to analyze it. Found herself in charge of the most important project, helping the heal completely. The refugees were stronger than they had been in years, but they were still dying slowly from the soul fracture virus. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Was working late in her lab when she heard singing from the refugee settlement. But this wasn't music. It was a human child teaching alien children to sing "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star." As listened, she noticed something amazing. The children's crystal bodies were glowing brighter than she had ever seen. The cracks in their skin were actually filling in, healing completely. She ran tests through the night. By morning, she had confirmed the impossible. Human children's music, innocent and unstructured, was curing the soul fracture virus. "It makes no scientific sense," she told Resonance of Falling Stars the next day. "But child music seems to repair your crystal matrix completely." The alien leader's light pulsed with excitement. Children's songs contain pure emotion without fear or doubt. Perhaps that is what our souls need to heal. Within days, every refugee was spending time with human children. Schools around the world opened their doors to alien students. The sight of crystal beings learning to sing nursery rhymes became common in every major city. But's favorite project was happening in the Sahara Desert. The first joint human settlement was taking shape, and it looked like nothing that had ever existed. Human architects had designed buildings that sang in the wind. Engineers had grown crystal gardens that responded to human emotions. Children from both species played games that involved making music with gravity and light. "This is what we're fighting for," told Captain as they toured the settlement. "Not just Earth, but the idea that different species can create something beautiful together." Nodded, watching a group of children use crystals to paint pictures with sound. "The Concordance won't understand this at all." "That's exactly the point." 2 days before the Concordance fleet was scheduled to arrive, received an urgent message. More alien ships had been detected approaching Earth, but these weren't part of the invasion force. She rushed to the command center, where Captain was studying the new readings. 12 ships, various designs, he reported. None of them match Concordance specifications. Felt her heart racing as the first transmission came through. The voice was translated through their new alien communication systems, but the words were clear. "Earth vessels, this is Captain of the refugee fleet. We heard your declaration of sanctuary. We seek permission to land." More voices followed. Species had never heard of, all asking for the same thing: permission to seek shelter on the world that had stood up to the Concordance. "How many?" asked. Checked his screens. 15,000 beings from 12 different species, all of them refugees from Concordance territory. Made the decision without hesitation. Grant them landing permission. If we're going to fight for the right to offer sanctuary, we might as well do it properly. The new arrivals landed around the world, met with representatives from each species, learning their stories. There were master engineers whose crime had been building ships without weapons. There were artists who had painted murals celebrating diversity. There were healers who had refused to develop biological weapons. Each species brought something unique to Earth's defense. They improved the satellite network's efficiency. The painted patterns that somehow made human fighters harder to target. that taught human medics to heal injuries that shouldn't have been possible to survive. But the most important contribution came from the children. Young beings from 13 different species playing together, creating music and art that every rule the Concordance knew about how the universe worked. Stood in her command center on the final day before the battle, watching reports from around the world. Concert halls broadcasting battle symphonies into space. Military bases where human soldiers trained alongside crystal beings and energy creatures. Cities where alien refugees worked side by side with human volunteers to prepare defenses that made no logical sense but somehow worked perfectly. "Are we really going to try to fight a galactic empire with the power of friendship?" Captain asked, half joking. Looked at her screens showing the approaching Concordance fleet. 300 ships, armed with weapons that could crack planets. Behind them, the combined might of an empire that ruled most of the galaxy. "Not friendship," she replied. "Something more dangerous than that. We're going to fight them with the power of hope." Resonance of falling stars approached them, his crystal body now glowing with perfect health thanks to weeks of exposure to human children's songs. "The enemy fleet has entered your solar system," he reported, "is broadcasting surrender demands on all frequencies." Smiled as she listened to the Concordance administrator's cold voice demanding that Earth submit to galactic order. Around the world, human musicians and alien refugees were preparing to show the galaxy what disorder looked like when it was fighting for something beautiful. "Let them come," she said. "Earth is ready." Outside her window, could see the first enemy ships appearing as dots of light in the sky. But she wasn't afraid. For the first time in galactic history, someone was going to say no to the Concordance's idea of order. And they were going to say it with music. The battle began at exactly 600 Earth Standard Time, when 300 Concordance warships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation around Earth. Watched from the command center, as the enemy fleet arranged itself in precise geometric patterns, each ship knowing exactly where it belonged in the attack plan. "This is Administrator," the cold voice echoed across every communication channel on Earth. "You have harbored criminals and galactic law. Surrender the refugees and submit to Concordance authority. You have 1 hour to comply." Captain looked at any second thoughts. Looked around the command center, where human technicians worked alongside alien refugees from 13 different species. Children from Earth and across the galaxy sat at special stations, ready to sing the battle songs that would power their defenses. "None," she replied. "Activate the Symphony Defense Network." Around the world, satellites began to sing. The first notes were simple, a piano melody played through crystalline amplifiers that made it audible across the solar system. The Concordance fleet immediately responded, their sensors trying to analyze the strange transmission. Then the complexity began. Every major city on Earth contributed to the symphony. New York added jazz rhythms that changed randomly every few seconds. London layered in electronic music that shifted frequencies and patterns no computer could predict. Tokyo contributed traditional drums that beat in mathematical sequences that somehow didn't follow mathematics. The refugees added their crystalline harmonies, but now strengthened by human creativity. The refugees contributed engineering songs that made the satellite network sing in perfect tune. The painted sound into visible colors that confused every visual sensor the Concordance had. "Enemy sensors are showing massive confusion," reported Lieutenant Sarah from her fighter cockpit. "Their targeting systems are trying to lock onto the music itself." Smiled. The Concordance had spent millions of years perfecting warfare. Their computers could calculate the trajectory of every missile, the energy signature of every weapon, the weakness of every possible defense. But they had never encountered a battle plan based on a kindergarten music class. Phase 2 announced, emotional amplification. This was the part was most proud of. While the satellites played complex music, the real weapon was the human children scattered across the Earth. Each child was connected to the defense network, and their natural emotions became part of the attack. When a 5-year-old girl in Brazil laughed at a funny cartoon, her joy was amplified through the crystals and broadcast at the Concordance fleet. When a group of children in Kenya got excited about a puppet show, their enthusiasm became a pulse of energy that overloaded alien computer systems. "This is impossible," his voice carried a note of frustration. "Their defensive network has no logical structure. How do we fight randomness?" Watch the Concordance fleet trying to respond. Their ships began firing at the satellites, but the music-guided defense grid made their targets impossible to hit. Every time an alien computer calculated where a satellite should be, human unpredictability moved it somewhere else. But the enemy wasn't helpless, ordered his fleet to begin planetary bombardment. If they couldn't fight the defense network, they would simply destroy the planet underneath it. "Incoming planetary bombardment," Captain announced. "Impact in 30 seconds. This was the moment had been most worried about. Their musical defenses could confuse targeting systems, but they couldn't stop massive energy weapons aimed at the entire planet. "Resonance of falling stars," called to the leader. "We need the full harmonic shield." The alien commander nodded, his crystal body blazing with light. Around the world, every refugee began to sing at once, but this wasn't just their usual music. This was a song they had learned from human children, amplified by their crystal biology and powered by the love they felt for their new home. The planetary shield that formed around Earth looked like solid music, waves of harmony visible to the naked eye, flowing around the planet in patterns that shifted with every note. When the Concordance bombardment hit the shield, the energy was absorbed and transformed into more music. "Impossible," transmitted again. "They turned our weapons into art." Laughed, "Welcome to Earth, Administrator. We specialize in impossible." The battle entered its third phase when the Concordance fleet tried to break through the musical shield with brute force. 200 warships focusing all their firepower on a single point, trying to punch through with raw energy. It almost worked. Watch the harmonic shield flickering under the massive assault. They were singing as loud as they could, but the enemy's weapons were designed to destroy entire planets. "Shield at 20%, reported Captain. "We can't maintain this much longer." That's when the children saved them. All around the world, human children had been watching the battle on television and computer screens. They saw the beautiful aliens who had become their friends struggling to protect Earth. They saw the shield of living music getting weaker. And they decided to help. First noticed it when her instruments detected new voices joining the planetary song. Children in schools, in homes, in hospitals. Millions of young humans singing along with the defense network, not because anyone asked them to, but because it felt right. Their voices were untrained, off-key, and completely unpredictable. It was exactly what the shield needed. The harmonic barrier around Earth suddenly blazed brighter than ever. Fed by the innocent songs of Earth's children, the shield became unbreakable. The Concordance bombardment hit it and simply vanished, absorbed into a growing symphony of human and alien voices. "How are they doing this?" demanded. "Children don't have psychic abilities. Children can't affect quantum fields with their voices." Keyed into the open communication channel. "You're right, Administrator. Children can't affect quantum fields, but they can affect something more powerful than quantum fields. They can affect hope." The Concordance fleet tried everything. Virus attacks that were stopped by engineering songs. Psychological warfare that failed because human children thought the alien insults were funny. Direct ramming attacks that missed because the pilots were laughing too hard at Earth's musical taunts to aim properly. But knew the enemy would eventually find a way through their defenses. The Concordants had been conquering galaxies for millions of years. They had to have some weapon that could break the musical shield. She was right. Resonance of Falling Stars approached her, his crystal body flickering weakly. Is preparing the Harmony Killer. Felt her blood go cold. What's that? A weapon designed specifically to destroy species like mine. It creates perfect silence by canceling all sound waves in a given area, if they use it against your planet. Understood immediately. The musical shield would collapse, the children's songs would be silenced, Earth would be defenseless. How do we stop it? She asked. Resonance of Falling Stars was quiet for a long moment. When he finally sang, his voice was filled with sadness. Someone must create a counter-harmony, a song so complex and powerful that it overwhelms the Harmony Killer before it can activate. He paused, but the singer would not survive the effort. Stared at him. No, we'll find another way. There is no other way. My people brought this war to your world. Let me end it. Before could stop him, Resonance of Falling Stars walked to the center of the command room. He placed his crystal hands on the main communication array and began to sing. It started as a simple melody, the same lullaby had heard the children singing weeks ago. But as Resonance of Falling Stars poured his life force into the song, it became something more. Every note carried the weight of his people's exile, their suffering, their hope for redemption. The song grew to include the voices of every on Earth, then the other refugee species, then the human children who had become their friends. It became the sound of 13 different species choosing to stand together against tyranny. Watched in horror and awe as Resonance of Falling Stars' crystal body began to crack. The song was using his life force as fuel, burning through his existence to create something the universe had never heard before. Stop, begged, you're killing yourself. The leader looked at her one last time, his light dimming but his voice growing stronger. We failed to save the singers of the wind, he sang. We will not fail to save the singers of the earth. His final note echoed across the solar system, carrying with it the combined hope and determination of everyone who had ever chosen mercy over orders, love over fear. The Harmony Killer weapon aboard's flagship tried to activate and simply shattered, overwhelmed by music too pure and powerful to silence. Resonance of Falling Stars collapsed, his crystal body now completely dark. But his song continued, carried by every satellite, every refugee, every child on Earth. The Concordance fleet found themselves surrounded by music that told the story of their own victims. They heard the voices of every species they had culled, every civilization they had destroyed in the name of order. For the first time in their empire's history, the Concordants faced the consequences of their actions. One by one, ships began to withdraw from the battle. Some crews against their officers. Others simply refused to continue firing on a planet that sang of hope instead of hatred. Administrator's voice came over the communications one final time, filled with confusion and something that might have been fear. This changes nothing. The Concordance will return with larger fleets, more weapons. You cannot fight the entire galaxy. Looked at the image of Earth surrounded by its shield of living music, protected by the combined efforts of species from across the galaxy who had chosen to stand together. You're right, she replied. We can't fight the entire galaxy, but we don't have to. We just have to teach them a better way to sing. 6 months after the Battle of the Songs, stood in the memorial garden that had grown around Resonance of Falling Stars' final resting place. The crystal formation that held his remains sang softly in the wind, harmonizing with similar memorials for the other heroes who had died protecting Earth. But the garden wasn't a place of sadness. Children from dozens of species played among the singing crystals, their laughter mixing with alien melodies to create something beautiful and new. Watched a human girl teach a young how to skip stones while a child showed them both how to make the stones sing as they bounced. He would have loved this, said a familiar musical voice behind her. Turned to see the being who now called herself Sam, in honor of her fallen leader. She was the new voice of the, and her crystal body glowed brighter than any of her people had ever achieved. The combination of human creativity and harmony had transformed them into something beyond what either species could accomplish alone. "The healing is complete?" asked. Sam nodded, her light pulsing with joy. "The soul fracture virus is gone from all our people, but more than that, we have evolved. Human emotions and creativity have strengthened our crystal matrix beyond our original biology. We are more than we were." Smiled as she watched more evidence of this transformation. Adults were teaching human engineers to grow buildings from living crystal. Human children were learning to paint with light and sound. The boundary between the species was disappearing, replaced by something entirely new. "The morning briefings are ready," Captain announced as he approached them. His old friend had been promoted again, now serving as Earth's first director of defense. The job kept him busy as more refugee ships arrived every week. They walked together toward the new UN headquarters, which had been rebuilt using a combination of human architecture and alien technologies. The building sang softly as they entered, its walls resonating with the emotional state of everyone inside. When people were happy, the building hummed with joy. When they were stressed, it played calming melodies. The briefing room was packed with representatives from 43 different species. What had started as a sanctuary for them had grown into something unprecedented in galactic history. Earth had become the galaxy's first true refuge world, where any being fleeing persecution could find safety. "Current refugee status," began, reading from his notes. "We now host 237,000 beings from 43 different species. Integration programs are active in every major city, and cultural exchange programs have been established worldwide." Looked around the room at the incredible diversity. The healers had revolutionized human medicine. The artists had filled Earth's cities with paintings that changed based on the viewer's emotions. The eye farmers had taught humans to grow food that sang while it ripened. But the most remarkable change was in the children. Watched a live feed from a school in Tokyo, where human and alien children learned together in ways that would have been impossible just months ago. A young was teaching mathematics through crystal harmonics, while human children showed their alien classmates how to laugh at jokes that made no logical sense. "Report from our intelligence network," continued. "The Concordance Empire is experiencing unprecedented unrest. 12 member species have formally questioned the culling protocol. 3 have declared independence and requested Earth's protection." Felt her heart racing. The rebellion was spreading faster than they had dared to hope. "More importantly," added, "we've received a transmission from the Singers of the Wind." The room fell silent. Everyone knew that species was supposed to be extinct, destroyed for the crime of developing musical space travel. Sam's light blazed with excitement. "That is impossible. We saw their world burn." Activated the holographic display. The image that appeared showed a small fleet of ships that looked like they were made of crystallized music. The beings aboard were the most beautiful aliens had ever seen, creatures that looked like living sound waves given form. "They survived," explained. "A small colony ship escaped the culling and has been hiding in dead space for years. When they heard our battle songs broadcast across the galaxy, they knew it was safe to reveal themselves." Wiped tears from her eyes. Resonance of Falling Stars had died believing his people's greatest failure could never be undone. Now he would be proven wrong. "When will they arrive?" Sam asked. 3 days, replied. "And they're not alone. Our scout ships report 17 different species en route to Earth, all seeking sanctuary." Looked around the room at the representatives of species who had found safety on Earth. "We need to expand the integration programs and the memorial gardens. We're going to need space for everyone who wants to remember what they've lost and celebrate what they've found." After the briefing, walked through the streets of New York. The city had been transformed by its alien residents. Crystal spires rose alongside human skyscrapers. Engineering had created transportation systems that moved people through tubes of controlled gravity. Art covered every available surface with murals that told the story of species learning to live together. But's favorite sight was the children. Everywhere she looked, human and alien young ones played together with the easy acceptance that only children could manage. They had created games that combined the physics of 17 different worlds. They spoke languages that mixed human words with alien harmonics. They drew pictures of futures where diversity was celebrated instead of feared. Stopped at a playground where a group of children were putting on a performance for their parents. The play they had written told the story of the Battle of the Songs, but from a child's perspective. The villains weren't scary galactic conquerors, but beings who had forgotten how to play and needed to be reminded. And then the music children taught the serious aliens how to sing silly songs, announced a 7-year-old girl who was playing herself. And everyone lived happily ever after. Laughed as the audience applauded. In the crowd, she saw human parents sitting next to elders, engineers chatting with healers, artists sketching the performance while farmers hummed along with the children's songs. This was what they had fought for, not just the right to exist, but the right to exist together, creating something beautiful from their differences. Radio crackled with an urgent message. "Doctor, we're receiving a priority transmission from deep space. You need to hear this." She hurried back to the communications center, where Sam was already waiting. The message was coming from the very edge of the galaxy, transmitted with such power that it had to be from a massive fleet. The voice that emerged from the speakers was cold and familiar. "Administrator." "People of Earth," the Concordance leader announced, "you have corrupted the galactic order. Your influence spreads like a virus, teaching species to value chaos over discipline. This will not be tolerated." Felt her blood go cold as the transmission continued. "The Concordance Grand Fleet is en route to your system. 1,000 ships, armed with weapons capable of destroying entire solar systems. Your musical defenses will not save you this time. Prepare for final judgment." The transmission ended, leaving the communications center in silence. Looked around at the worried faces of her alien friends and human colleagues. 1,000 ships, said quietly. "That's more firepower than has ever been assembled in galactic history." Walked to the window and looked out at the city where dozens of species lived together in harmony. She thought about the children who had learned to sing in 17 different languages. She thought about the memorial garden where crystal formations sang lullabies to help young refugees sleep peacefully. Then she thought about something Resonance of Falling Stars had told her months ago. The Concordance's greatest weakness is their inability to understand illogical responses. Smiled as an idea began to form. She said, "Send a message to every species in our protection network. Tell them we need volunteers for the most important performance in galactic history." "Performance?" Sam asked, her light flickering with confusion. Looked at her alien friend, then at the city full of refugees who had found hope on Earth. "The Concordance thinks they're coming to destroy us. Instead, we're going to teach them something they've never learned." "What's that?" asked. Walked back to the memorial garden, where children from across the galaxy were playing together under the singing crystals. In 3 days, the Singers of the Wind would arrive to find a world where their music lived on in the hearts of beings they had never met. In weeks, 1,000-ship armada would arrive expecting war, and instead find something the universe had never seen before. "We're going to teach them the most dangerous thing in the galaxy," said. "We're going to teach them how to change their minds." As the sun set over Earth, the planet's new anthem began to play from crystal formations around the world. It was a song written by children from 43 different species, telling the story of a small blue world that had said no to an empire and yes to hope. The melody carried across space, a message to anyone who might be listening. Earth was ready for whatever came next. And this time they wouldn't fight alone.